Man, I don't need no stupid life vest. Hey, what's up, gang? This is Brian with Flint Hill Catfishing. Welcome back to another episode. Today I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about safety. I had a mishap on the river yesterday, and it could have been a lot worse than it was. So yesterday when I was fishing on the river, I had a great day, but I went down to another part of the river and I anchored up. While I was sitting there anchored, I was in the middle of the river and kind of a current break. There's some rocks underwater and it slows the water down. They come over and it kind of makes just a little slick semi-eddy there. While I was there anchored in my kayak, the current began to increase sharply over about a 45-minute period of time. It went from around, I'd say 4,000 to 5,000 CFS. It jumped up to around 10,100, 10,200 CFS. It's a drastic difference. It's nothing big. I mean, it's happened a lot of times when I've been out there kayaking. But in this instance, my anchor pulled loose. And I started sliding and the anchor was dragging. And I'll show you what happened next. Check it out. All right, so grave error number one. My number one error, the first one anyway, is that I didn't have a life jacket on. I have a lot of experience in whitewater. I've been in kayaks and canoes and stuff most of my life. So I'm very confident and very adept in them. However, on the Catawba where I fish all the time, I know that stretch really good. It can breed complacency, and it had. I hate wearing life jackets because they're hot. South Carolina's hot. I'm paddling. I have a trolling motor on my kayak, but it's just an assist when I'm going upstream and, fighting current. It's only 30 pounds thrust. It ain't going to take me, up a 3.5 mile an hour current without me, sticking it with the paddle a little bit. So just the sweat and everything else. I have 100 excuses I could make for not wearing one, but you won't see me in any of my videos anymore without a life jacket on. And I know there's different kinds out there that when you hit the water, they inflate. I'm going to check into some of those, look at the ratings on them, etc. If you have any advice on that or suggestions, please comment and let me know, because I'm going to make a purchase soon on that. But that was error number one. Had anything happened to me that could have, made me lose consciousness, if I got hit in the head, anything like that. I mean, it's just a whole rack of things that could have happened. What if I pass out? What if something's wrong with me? I've always been strong and healthy, but what if it's that one day, like this day where I fell out, but instead I was, unconscious. I passed out or something for unknown reasons. If you go in the water unconscious, you're dead. So error number one, no life jacket. Wear your life jacket. Figure out how to make it work. It could have cost me dearly for a number of reasons in this situation. And who knows how many times I've just missed an accident and didn't know it. Didn't have a life jacket on. So I'm getting out of that habit. I always wear one in the wintertime when the water's getting cooler, and in the fall when the water's getting cooler. But I haven't in the summertime. So that's going to change. Anyway, that was error number one for sure. All right, so error number two. Error number two was, instead of leaving my anchor trolley, which allows the ring that my anchor line goes through to slide back and forth along the side of my boat, positioning my anchor line where I want it so my boat can shift positions on the water. That's what that anchor trolley is. I'm not going to go into it too deep, but instead of leaving it at the back of the boat where I had it, when my anchor slipped off, I loosened my anchor trolley, pulled it toward the center of the boat. So now that ring with the anchor rope in it going down to the bottom, I pushed over towards my hip right beside me. Error number two, man. When tension built on that thing again, it jerked my boat and it held me broadside. It pulled me into a broadside position in the current. That's a no-no in moving water. It's going to capsize you if you're not careful. I tried to turn the boat with my own strength, but as many as you know that have any experience with moving water, rivers, etc., you cannot fight that water. It's going to win every time, and it has longer than we've been around. It always wins. So that was error number 2, because when that tension built, I pulled on it, my boat tilted, and there was nothing I could do. I had to let go of my anchor line. All right, so that being said, one thing I did do right in this situation is I didn't tie off my anchor rope like super securely to something. If I had, my kayak would have dipped under the water and it would have stayed there, just buried in the water. What I did was, and I did this intentionally, was I tied my anchor rope off. There's 2 round steel tubes that are the base of my seat that I sit on, and they rest down in 2 ruts on each side. They just rest down, the front tube, back tube. They sit down in that kayak. I tied my anchor rope around that. Now, you may think I'm stupid for tying it to my chair, but I didn't tie it tightly. I tied it so if that anchor rope grabbed, it's going to slide right off of that tube and out into the water, and it's not going to hang my kayak and keep it there while I'm floating downriver in heavy currents. So that was a good thing I did, for sure, and that's why the boat didn't stay there like this, but you saw it when I fell in. Right about the time I fell in, I fell on the anchor rope, and I think I ended up pulling the rope the rest of the way off of what it was secured to. So the boat just righted itself again immediately, and we were both floating down the river at the same time. So that was one good thing. So keep that in mind if you're ever in a kayak. I know boats are way different. In my kayak, the width of a kayak, it's just inherent that you could go into drink it sometime if you make a mistake. So anyway, error number 2, messed up on positioning my anchor line when I was trying to get the tension off of my anchor line. I probably should have cut it at that point. So error number 3, as I said just a second ago, I probably should have cut the line at that time while it was still through the ring at the back of the kayak on my anchor trolley, when I couldn't get it loose and I had no hope of pulling myself back upstream to try to get the anchor off. Current was just too strong. Wasn't happening that day. I've done it a lot of times in strong current, but not that strong. It was moving. So I should have cut it immediately. And I had scissors, knives. I got everything right there where I can get to it. In fact, in the video, you can see me reach for the scissors, and this is key, but this was the wrong time to do it. I waited until my line started to pull tension on that tube, and it was enough before that line came off of that tube to tip me over and put me in a drink. But you see me reach for my scissors, and as soon as I reached down to cut it, it was already gone. I flipped. So I should have cut that immediately when I knew that I couldn't get it loose, but I had already screwed myself by bringing that ring broadside anyway. And that put a lot of tension on it. I couldn't hold it. Had that tension been from the back of the boat, I still would have maintained somewhat, straight boat direction, straight downstream, but instead pulled me broadside like I mentioned before. So I should have cut it immediately. So that was error number 3. All right, so final error, number 4. I didn't really notice this until I went back and watched the footage, but it was a little bit unnerving and chilling to watch. I'm lazy sometimes when I'm fishing, and I leave my lines hanging and dangling. I bet some of y'all shaking your head because you saw it in the video and were like, oh my God, you big dummy. But I leave them dangling so when I'm drifting, if I'm seeing some marks or coming up on a ledge, I can just hit the bail, drop my lines down, and do a little suspend drifting over top of those areas and maybe nail some fish, which I did right before that, which you'll see in the video later on. But the problem with that is when the current's that strong and consequence for error is higher, I probably shouldn't do that at all. I probably should anchor fish out of the current or drift the current seams and, not take that risk, which I won't do next time for sure. But I will definitely not take that risk in current that heavy next time. But that being said, if you see in that clip how close my leg came to that hook, And if that 8/0 circle hook had buried itself in my ankle or my foot, we're talking about a whole different world of problems at that point. And I had no life vest on, like I said earlier. I have a knife on my life vest, which I can cut things with. I would have had nothing like to cut that line with, and that tension from that thing would have been pulling that hook deep into my leg, and it would have been painful, and it would be very difficult to get out of in that current. I mean, I could, gnaw on it or something. I don't know. You can say what you would do, but in that situation, it could have been fatal. The other thing is just flipping over in a kayak altogether can be dangerous. If it completely flips over and those lines cross and you get caught in them, you're in trouble. You need a life vest with a knife on it. A life vest with a knife on it, so you can make those cuts quick and get out of that situation and get back in your boat. So that was error number 4, and it was a big one, and it gave me goosebumps when I saw it, because I think I was pretty close to getting hooked on that thing. That would have been pretty rough. All right, here's the whole clip again for you guys that want to see me look dorky again. Check it out. All right, gang, so to wrap this all up, in a nutshell, I debated whether I should do this video or not. I didn't want to be roasted by people. I didn't want to look stupid. I just didn't want people to see my error. But as I thought about it more, I thought about the fact that people could be watching this video that are modeling their setup after me, and they're not hearing safety from me or seeing it. So I feel that obligation a little more now. I don't want to get hurt or die from doing something that could have been easily prevented with the right kind of safety. So be safe out there. Wear your PFD. Walk through the system of how you're going to get out of a jam in your boat or your kayak, and make sure you're ready for that, because if it happens, it's quick. It always is. And what you knew 10 years ago that maybe you haven't had to put into practice because it didn't happen, it's going to come up on you in a hurry, and you're going to have to make a decision. It needs to be ingrained in you what you're going to do. So be safe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for joining. This is Brian with Flint Hill Catfishing. Peace.